Just a little advanced warning, if you haven't seen my review of the first book in the series known as Tunnels, don't forget to check that out since I'll be mentioning that book many times over in the course of this video. Alright then, let's talk about the Tunnels series. Considering that A, the first book left off on a cliffhanger, and B, despite my opinion on it, it still garnered some pretty positive reviews, Tunnels was bound to have a sequel. But of course, the question still remained. How good was the sequel going to be, and would it be enough to, in my opinion, save the series? In case you don't feel like watching me overanalyze the second book in the Tunnels series, aka the creatively named Deeper, the short answer is a definite no. But for the long answer, we need to dive deeper. The book opens up by introducing our not main character, Sarah Jerome, Will's real mother. Just so you know, I'll be skimming over a lot of the story in this summary. Just saying. She learns that her brother Tam died defending Will and his brother Cal. Will, Cal, and Chester, meanwhile, arrive in the Deeps, where they are attacked by bats and take shelter in an old house. Meanwhile, after meeting with Mrs. Burroughs, Will's mom, Sarah begins to believe that Will killed Tam. That belief is reinstated when Rebecca, Will's evil not sister, arrives with the Six and convinces Sarah to help them kill Will before he supposedly kills Cal. Also meanwhile, Mr. Burroughs is shown to be alive and travels further into the Deeps. In the next portion of the book, Sarah is underground again, and the Six prepare her to track down Will. Throughout this portion of the book, Sarah gets extremely angry at Will, and she can tell, everyone can tell, that she plans to kill Will. Remember this, as it will be important later. Also, in an attempt to find food, Will and Chester end up having to leave an unconscious Cal in a cavern. And finally, Rebecca releases a plague into the above-ground world. Also, take note of that, as it is something else I will mention again later on. Will and Chester meet up with Drake and Elliot, who are renegades fighting against the Sticks. Drake and Elliot decide to keep the boys around, and they even save Cal from the cavern, with Elliot taking a liking to the other two boys, but apparently not Will. As Sarah enters the Deeps, Mrs. Burroughs learns that the plague, which is, while currently non-lethal, is getting increasingly more dangerous. We then get to the part of the book that ultimately has no effect on the rest of the story, except for the fact that Drake gets captured and Elliot is forced to shoot him. I'll talk about this more later, but for now let's just skim over it and get back to the story. Dr. Burroughs falls into a hole, and then Elliot simply shoots Sarah in a complete anticlimax I will go into great detail on later. They convince Sarah Will did not kill Tam, and they are forced to leave Sarah behind. And then finally, we have the end of the story, in which so much idiocy takes place it's hard to sum it up in a normal fashion, so I'll just list off the important things. Apparently, there are two Rebeccas who have been taking turns watching Will all these years. They reveal that the entire plan is to kill the above-ground people with the Dominion virus. Cause you know, they have to reveal their entire plan, cause they are stereotypical 90s villains after all. The stereotypical 90s villains shoot Cal, and Chester, Will, Elliot, and Cal's dead body fall into the pool, the giant hole Dr. Burroughs fell into. Sarah pushes the two Rebeccas into the hole too with her dying strength, and apparently Drake is alive on the surface, even though Elliot clearly shot him in the head, and I don't know. It's confusing. Well, now that the summary's over, let's talk about why I despise this book so much. The first and most important problem with the story is that it wastes your time. In my opinion, besides being generally offensive, one of the worst things a story can do is not advance the plot, which is something 75% of this 640-page book is based around. It legitimately surprises me how much of this book is spent with moments of nothing happening. The worst offender is the fourth part of the story, where 1/3 of it is just Will being lost and then being found. even though it completely wastes our time. You could probably cut this down to a 200-page book by taking away all the filler, and it would still tell the exact same story. But unlike the first book, the next problem is almost as bad as the first problem. Sarah Jerome. Throughout the entire book, the big confrontation between Sarah and Will is built up so much, and it's basically the one thing keeping me reading. I really wanted to know whether or not Sarah would kill Will. I would have never finished the book if that one thing wasn't keeping me in this suspense. And how does that conflict end? Well, were you expecting an epic fight scene? Well, what we get is even better. Sarah immediately gets shot. I'm not even joking. She doesn't even say one thing to Will before Elliot shoots her. The scene the entire book built up to doesn't even exist. Not only that, but remember how much Sarah wanted to kill Will? Well, throughout the book she keeps saying how much she wants Will dead, and everyone sides with her. Everyone else wants Will dead. And yet in the books that follow, all the characters are like, "Oh my god, Sarah is amazing! She never believed you're evil for 1 second, Will! And she loved you! And she cared about you, Will! And she never once wanted you dead, Will! And she died for your sins!" And they basically act like Sarah always loved Will and never wanted to kill him. And I do have one more problem with the story. Other than the stupid anticlimax with Sarah, there is really no suspense in the story. They basically tell you everything from the start, and they never tried to hide any information from you. They immediately tell you the Six is planned 2 books into the series, and when you get down to it, there's no reason to continue reading this book. There's no suspense besides the cliche, will the heroes survive? There's no creativity besides the fact that they're underground. The villains are boring, and really, why would there be 2 Rebeccas even though the story would basically say the same if there was one? I mean, I understand they did it so the story would have more than one villain, and the later books actually do something with this, but still, why can't you just add a second villain that's original and not what is literally a carbon copy of your last villain? So obviously, I don't like this book. While the last one had creative ideas, this book has little to nothing creative and is just trying to ride the wave of fame the last book created. And let me get this straight, there are much better ways to spend your time than reading this 600-page book. But for what it's worth, at least the Sarah plot kept me somewhat interested until they ruined it with an anticlimax. So if you were reading it the first time through, it would probably keep you intrigued for your first read. So overall, Deeper gets a laughable 61 out of 100. If you got nothing better to do, then maybe if you've skimmed over the pointless and boring parts of this book, you could be kept somewhat busy for a few hours. As you can tell, I rather disliked this book, even though it also got some positive ratings. And I know I gave away my opinion of this book in my last review, so this time I won't mention how much I absolutely despise Freefall and never want to read that piece of garbage again. Dang it.